doesn't matter if you don't believe in karma. It doesn't matter if you don't believe in past lives. The question is, what is it you want to get for yourself in your life? What is getting in the way of it? How willing are you to go to the depths of your being to get your answers? The whole idea of karma is to get that actually you are always whole and complete. You are free. There is this idea of jivatma, that you are freed as you are alive. You are actually living life liberated as a being. So you may never speak to a person that you need to resolve something with, but you can do that through the higher consciousness. And you will be amazed at how much peace can be brought about in the energetics and the dynamics. But when we shift something with one individual, we shift it with everybody. And most profoundly, I think we shift it with ourselves.
Aside from my soul.
Welcome back to the Inspired Evolution. And we have with us today, inspiring our evolution, Smita Joshi. Smita, how are you there?
I am super. Thank you so much. So lovely to finally speak to you, Amrit, because as you know, we've been waiting to talk to each other for so long, and congratulations on your new baby boy.
Oh my God, thank you so much. It is such a treat. And like you said, good things come to those who wait. And I've been patiently waiting for this to happen. And for those tuning in, we will talk about how good things come and sometimes not so good things come. Smita Joshi is the author of Karma and Diamonds, a series which, skillfully blends capturing life's spiritual journey through. You're an amazing storyteller, and what you do really well, in my humble opinion, is like balancing this unique blend of Eastern philosophy with Western narratives, making complex ideas from like the rich Eastern tapestry of philosophy to really accessible little nuggets that we can take away chapter after chapter. We dive into themes like karma, self-discovery, man's search for meaning. It is such a pleasure to have you here today with us. I wanted to dive straight out of the gate. So, there are so many conceptions around karma. It's become very popularized into today's vernacular. We use the word karma a lot. There's many different topics we're going to cover in today's ground, cover ground on in today's conversation. Like the protagonist's name is also Maya, and there's all these connotations around the illusion. But I think the key place I wanted to start was around karma, and just what is your definition of karma for those that are tuning in? I think starting there would be really useful for us to get somewhat clear on what you mean by karma.
So, very simply, anything that you think and do often enough, and that becomes what we call a sanskar, which is an imprint that becomes like a reflex for you, whether it's in thought, action. Usually thought and action, they tend to follow, action follows thought. So that, when we do it often enough, then creates a certain impact and a momentum. And when something gathers momentum because it's been thought and done often enough, then it then has some legs. And so that becomes karma, because if people have it if somebody says something, let's say that you stick your finger up to somebody because in traffic because they've annoyed you. I mean, unless you do that time and again, and that is something natural and normal for you, then it's not really something that's going to have momentum in your life. It's that occasionally, something can happen and it's not who you are. Hasn't yet become who you are, so to speak. So when an action becomes a sanskar, i.e. a repetitive, or something repetitive, and it then becomes an imprint in your psyche such that it's natural for you to do again and again and again. That then creates some sort of an impact, repetitive impact in your life, a pattern in your life. That for me is karma. As in my study, and I've gone very deep into the topic of karma, I've looked at it from so many angles, and I've really gone long ways around the world, around the different texts, and to understand the various um, aspects, facets of it. And that's why the diamond analogy fits really well for me, because just as karma has different facets, so that which exists beyond karma, which is the higher consciousness there, that is called atman in Sanskrit, that also has so many different facets, and you can tap into those different facets if you can go beyond that which is your emotions, your feelings, that which you know yourself to be as an identity. So karma uh, is something that, often we say somebody has a personality, like that person is this way because they react in this way. You can almost be predictable about how you can what you can expect from them. So that is sanskars. That is, and you can, that that's going to generate a certain outcome for them in their lives repetitively. So that's the kind of like karma that I'm talking about, when it becomes like what I call, when ice or water flows through a stream, but then it becomes ice and it becomes hardened and it becomes set. You can relate to karma something like that. That's your thoughts and your patterns of behavior practiced long enough that they become almost like set, um, and they become part of your personality. That kind of give your personality.
It's really interesting because mostly, I think in the Western sort of adaptation of karma, it's all got to do with actions. It's like do good deeds and good things will happen to you. And yet here you are describing that it's actually not just your deeds, it's also your thoughts in many ways as well. So it's, maybe I'm sort of biased because of the kind of conversations we have here on the Inspired Evolution, but intention seems to be quite deeply woven into your definition of karma.
Intention is very, very key. The Jains look at karma in a very different way. The Buddhists look at the Buddha definitely included intention as being a part of what creates karma. And then the Jains go even a bit further. The Jain religion in India. I mean, it's a minority religion,
Very
but
beautiful
nonetheless,
faith. Very beautiful faith.
beautiful faith, and extremely non-violent, and to the extent that they consider that anything that you harm, any tiny living thing that you harm, gives rise to some reaction into your life. And so that's the extent to which they see it. But in reality, when I've looked at karma from different perspectives, my own journey, and I've gone back into past, I mean, in the queries that I've put to the universe, to my higher self, the questions I have asked have led me in their answers to going beyond this life and uncovering existences which give rise to what has been happening in my life in this lifetime, because the continuation of the jiva, the spark of consciousness, the subset of consciousness that is known as atman, that comes into the body, in Sanskrit is called jivatman. In the Vedic philosophies, jiva means life, and that's the part of you that brings the memories, the imprints of those things that have stuck with you so deeply, because again, either because something happened some event happened that caused so much intense memory and trauma, um, to remain with you at the moment of your death, or because you just simply happen to practice a thought and an action again and again and again, and that carries on with you even now, and it kind of impacts and influences how you see life today and what you do with life today. So coming back to intention, um, definitely intention. Why? Because intention is one of those things that has power. It goes deep into the mind, into the thought bank. So intention, by virtue of what it is, implies that you desire a certain outcome so intensely, as opposed to just saying, oh, it's a horrible day today. Why is it always like this in England? It's always raining here. Do you know what I'm saying? So as opposed to that, that's kind of like a very, very loose, it doesn't have any sting. It doesn't have any bite. It doesn't have any grip. Or as one of my teachers, that I learned a lot about how karma works, actually clearing karma, a lady called Chris Griscom in Santa Fe. She has this institute called the Light Institute. She calls it the stickum. It's like those thoughts and those things, those actions that we take, that have some grip and stick 'em, like a Velcro. So intention, I think, is very central to to the idea of karma.
Yeah, there's a few things in there, and I there's definitely going to be one of my questions today around reincarnation and karma and how it gets carried through lifetimes and potentially. And then through there, I wanted to, maybe now's a really good place for us to, because understanding the Atman and the Jivatman, you had this really beautiful parable about the two birds. Can you introduce that to us so that we can understand the Atman and the Jivatman a little bit better? And it might, then from that point, we can, like, I can ask more questions around karma and reincarnation.
So in the Rig Veda, there is this, and several other Vedas as well. There's two other Vedas, or Upanishads rather, in which this story appears. And the story basically is very simple. It's an analogy or an allegory that talks about two birds. Both of them are, one of them is sitting on the branch of a tree with fruit, and the other one is there, but is not actually, it's there and it's observing. The other one, the first bird, is actually eating the fruits, is very much engaged in partaking of everything that the tree has to offer. And the analogy of this is that the one that is observing is getting the pleasure of just seeing the fruit and the essence of the fruit, that it doesn't need to actually eat the fruit, doesn't need to actually get attached into actually taking any action with that. So the idea is that the jivatman is the bird that's eating and enjoying what we call, bhog. It's enjoying the actual event, and the material aspect of the fruit, whereas the one that's observing is the atman, who is our, as it were, we in the new age, we call it, new age terminology, we call it the higher self. But I like to think of it as the wise conscious part of you, the wise conscious part of you, that pure consciousness, as it were. But then, when you start talking about consciousness, then we question, like, what is consciousness? And science hasn't quite nailed it. But if I were to say, it's the wise conscious part of us that is not engaged in what the what gives us, the human aspect of the being. So there's the human and there's the being. I would say the being is the atman, the bird that is observing, purely observing, and the jivatman is the one, is the you and I, who are walking about in the world. We have this identity. We, like, we're here to enjoy. We're here to experience. We're here to go through this web of Maya, as it were. There is this is the world, this is it, this is the world that as it exists. There is nothing else. This is it. Whereas the observer is kind of going, the observer bird, the atman, is just there, and it's all like, it's like more than 90% of who we are, let's say. And the idea is that we have this, whenever you're learning something, have you noticed when we're learning something, we think we have this amazing excitement. We have this breakthrough, like, oh, I'm learning about, I don't know, physics or something. I've got to go and tell everybody about this. And yet we've just begun, and we haven't quite got the details. As you get more into the the science of it, as you get more into the um, experiments and so on and so on, you realize that actually we hardly know anything. So that's how it is with the jivatman, the bird that's eating, and the one that's observing, the atman, is like there's this one that's so detached, and yet everything that you could possibly want is in that space, in that aspect of who we are. And so that's the two birds story, basically, is really trying to get us to understand that at some point, when are we going to be satiated enough that we can detach from the need to partake of the fruit and experience ourselves only through our physical existence? That there is this other aspect of us which is so much bigger and so much more potent. And if we really truly want to experience fulfillment in this sense of Satchit Anand, Anand, that 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 word, which will loosely translated in English, means happiness, but it is not. Isn't it's way beyond Anand. It's just the word Anand. It, it it's beyond. It's bliss and beyond, as it were. That sense. So if we want to get into that zone of actually tapping into life from that higher space, then we are going to at some point have to stop being so myopic and only seeing what's in front of us, and see if we can maybe take a bird's eye higher view of things and maybe detach a little bit. Maybe we'll see something else. So that's the story of the two birds.
I love the yeah, and having followed Gary Zukav here on the podcast, he wrote the books The Seed of the Soul, and yeah, just the way it's articulated is like the Atman being like the way I was sort of understanding as I started diving deeper into your work was like there's a soul, and there's also this like soul life, but it seems like soul incarnate, which is almost like what he calls personality. So the question from that point, and I'm conscious I'm still sort of riding this wave of karma and reincarnation, is yeah, just like a trippy dippy hippie question around where is karma stored?
Really interesting, isn't it? So look, Gary Zukav, I read his books, I think in the early 90s, The Seat of the Soul, one of my favorite books.
Isn't it such a beast of a thing? Yeah.
It influenced me so much, and I really want to speak to Gary if he's still around. I just want to really have a chat with him, and maybe invite him onto my podcast. Where is karma stored? Isn't that interesting? And so this is where we're talking about the karma is really in the jivatman. It is in that whole space of what we bring with us. Because what is karma then? Exactly as I said, earlier, when something sticks and it transmigrates from one time and one body to another, because it's obviously because it's gone so deep somewhere in your essence, which is the atman, the jivatman, and that comes with you. So that's where the karma tends to be stored. And in order for having an impact at any quantum level, there is no other alternative but to there are some things that you so let me finish the sentence and I'll come back to this. So there's no other alternative than to actually tap into the atman, the part of you that is not tainted by the past, any aspect of the past, now, or I don't know, whatever, 100 lifetimes ago, whatever. In a sense, we don't really need to worry about lifetimes, okay, unless there's a reason to, unless something is so profoundly um, inaccessible, then sometimes that's the case. And that's that's one of the things that I've looked into, is why did certain things happen in my life so intensely and again and again and again, and and how do I get into resolving those elements that keep that pattern keep that pattern alive, and have it active in my space. So then there are some things that we absolutely need to do in this life. So there are, you can easily go back to the day you were born, and there'll be a series of things that you'll discover that will clearly have shaped who you are today. And in some ways they will have shaped you for the positive, and other things which are limiting right now and getting in the way of who you are at the level of atman, who you are at your higher in
Unlimited
your
potential.
higher version.
Yeah.
So that's something that we can't get around. We have to develop the self-awareness. So self-awareness is a tool that absolutely has to kick in. Emotional intelligence really, really helps in that process. Communication, the ability to actually articulate for yourself, which is where things like journaling are so powerful, because sometimes you can't sit with somebody always. You've got to you have to work it out for yourself, and then there'll be some things which you can work out with somebody else. But so all these elements are really important, but at the same time, if you want to speed up, catalyze the process, my experience is to tap in to the higher aspect of who you are and to call that in and to open up and say, right, I really like, you've got to declare your commitment. You've got to declare how deeply you want something to be resolved. And then, calling that higher aspect of you in, the part of you that has the answers beyond the conditioning of, it's like Einstein said, right? If you want to see some, if you want a solution to something, you can't go to the same place in your mind as the one that created the problem, as where the problem was created from. So you do need to step outside of that. And that's why the Karma in Diamonds is really a reflection of the various ways in which I've gone about connecting with that higher aspect. I call it my inner diamond, because just as karma is multifaceted, so is my inner diamond. That higher self has got so many facets to it. And the challenge is or the invitation is to kind of connect with it, get to know it, and see how you can communicate, avail of its wisdom.
Hey, your Inspired Tribe. I want to take a quick sec. I wanted to share something today with you that is really dear to my heart, and it's actually what keeps the entire ecosystem around the Inspired Evolution thriving, my one-on-one coaching. So it's basically coaching that helps you live a spiritually aligned life. I coach people from all different types of walks of life. These people are leaders, and they're looking to have an incredible spiritual impact in the lives that they're leading for themselves, and then also lead in alignment to their values. Now, you don't have to take my word for it. Here's a few people that have also transformed through my coaching, and here's what they have to say.
Amrit is a fantastic coach.
In a few sessions, he got to a depth that I'd only experienced before working with certain medicines.
He's gone through a lot of the struggles that you're probably facing.
Then my corporate banking job wasn't really doing it.
You feel like you're not making progress towards your goals.
And Amrit's been a really strong, supportive figure in my journey.
I'm more in control of myself.
I'm kinder to myself.
I actually have that vision and a purpose.
I do feel like I'm a better version of myself already.
Amazing energy.
He was easy to talk to, which made me easy to trust him.
Working with Amrit at 9 o'clock on a Saturday morning, and really I was bouncing out of bed.
Whenever I get off the calls with Amrit, best money we've ever spent.
I would not recommend him because I don't want everyone to know about him, and then I won't be able to book him. If he gets too busy, I won't get my turn.
I would say absolutely.
There's no way you can work with Amrit for a period of time without being transformed.
So if you're considering him as a coach, do not hesitate, because you won't be disappointed.
As you guys can see, there's a lot of people all over the world from all these different corners experiencing incredible transformations. I don't think, if I can say humbly myself, that there is anything quite like this somewhere else online. Most people that, have channels that, grow and grow and grow don't really focus on one-to-one offerings. I have just found that it is the most profound space where you can bring yourself in a private container and really just share what's going on for yourself. And if you want to book in for that call with me, touch base, it's www.amrit.coach/life. That's www.amrit.coach/life. There is a link in the show notes below to book in that call. And yeah, if you want to take your journey further, if you want to dive in deeper, and you really want to live a spiritually aligned life, if it's for you, please do check it out. And without too much further ado, once again, for your spirit, for yourself, today's podcast. And so from that point, it becomes interesting because there is Because karma, in our initial definition, has this connotations of thought and action, which seems very well confined to a particular lifetime. I had certain thoughts in this life and I had certain actions in this life. And similar to how you've already been alluding, though, there is some part of awareness around karma that there is certain karma that potentially transcends lifetimes if you're open to this kind of conversation. I'm sure that's not for everybody, but for certain people, that's, bread and butter. And so that is quite an interesting sort of take, because maybe I'll just ask you the question in terms of your awareness of that. And then also that kind of starts to bleed into this idea of destiny, free will. Like, it starts to get really, really interesting to sort of see, even begging the question as to why we're picking up certain lessons, why are we sort of so embroiled in this sea of karma?
What I've seen is some people, like when they're just in their 20s, like before they even hit before they hit 30, they have created a brand for themselves. They've created their wealth. They've done, people like that. I know people like that, right?
3D success, tick, smashed it. Yep.
They have it. They hit the ground running, and yet they will have had their emotional issues in life for sure. So it's a really interesting example of how I would never say to somebody, if you don't believe in karma, it's completely fine, because their reality is whatever I put my mind to, I get the result. Okay. And that's how my life is I go, yeah, great. Congratulations. So you have that individual may already have, let's say that there are no past lives. Let's just say they hit the jackpot. They hit the lottery, right? They got the genes, they got the, maybe just at that very basic level, we could assert that. We could also say that perhaps they have already been, places before this lifetime where they've already worked on clearing a whole bunch of stuff, and they came in this time to experience a whole other reality, which is also great. So this idea of karma isn't for everyone is absolutely valid, because it isn't for everybody and it shouldn't be for everybody. But I think when somebody hits very tricky, deep-seated, deep-rooted issues, and they're not able to resolve it through the known means, then I wonder whether there's some value in tapping into other possibilities. Potentially, it may or may not work for them, but for me, it has. And one of my major challenges was in the area of relationships. I kept attracting men who were emotionally unavailable. Now, even if they were completely besotted with me, they were only able to go so deep within their emotional bandwidth that I was left feeling like I'm not, this is not intense enough. There's something missing. There's more. I need to go deeper. And you don't always know when you're in the process as to exactly, when I was in my 20s, I didn't know what it was, but I knew that there was more and that I shouldn't just settle for this. And so I really explored for myself, why was I hitting, those repetitive patterns almost every time in different guises with different individuals. And so for me, that was the question. And I'm really glad that I went all the way and I found, however, it worked for me, it resolved it for me, because the relationship I have now with my husband is like something that I had an epiphany about in a meditation, what was possible between two people, like this sacred union. But I honestly, Amrit, it is way beyond anything I was capable of imagining. Way, way beyond. Because, when you're really committed to resolving an issue, that part of you, the wise conscious part of you, higher self, atman, call it what you will, the inner diamond, it will take you into the nooks and crannies, of this planet and of yourself, to be able to give you the resolution and the answers. So it doesn't matter if you don't believe in karma. It doesn't matter if you don't believe in past lives. The question is, what is it you want to get for yourself in your life? What is getting in the way of it, if anything? And if so, how willing are you to go to the ends of your being, to the depths of your being, to get your answers and to get your solutions?
You've mentioned the word commitment a couple of times, and it seems like it's a really deep groove that you're running with your relationship to commitment. Yeah, can you describe that a little bit further? Maybe even how you make a commitment to yourself. And then another little trippy dippy hippie question, which is like, if you are sort of setting these commitments, there's this idea around karma that, sometimes it's correlated to fate. And this is where, the free will question starts to open up. Whereas if you're setting a commitment so deeply, it seems like you're setting down a dive charge to really like break apart the earth with this new forged trajectory. But then is it a new forged trajectory, or was that always the trajectory that you were going to have at that particular point in time? Like, yeah, I'm asking two questions in one, I guess, which is around commitment and then also the fate and how our commitments play in. Yeah.
It's a really, really deep question. When we talk about fate and we talk about destiny, we have it like it's cast in stone. And what I'm talking about is that there are certain things that you can do to, for example, my predictable future was going to be that I was going to be in a relationship with somebody who was going to really, it wasn't going to be a question from their side of being committed to me, but it was going to be a question of being emotionally available to the extent which I can go, to the extent which I want to experience relationship with another human being in this lifetime. Okay, I know what I'm capable of giving. I know what I'm capable of creating in a relationship, and but a relationship is like a clap. You got two hands. You can't clap with one hand, as it were. So I need to show up in a certain way, as a certain human being, resolved with certain aspects of my own limitations, my own limits, the things that keep me from, being the version of myself that I want to offer. So I have to work on that, and I do. And Common Diamonds really demonstrate the extent to which I've gone to do that. And there are 3 books, not 1 but 3. So that's one aspect of this idea of destiny and fate. I don't believe I don't believe I'm fated for anything. Because we have this free will element. But if you imagine there's a meteor coming, okay? Meteor is hurtling through space, and it is traveling at a velocity which is so intense that it's going to take maybe Superman or a superhero to get to it, and it's going to be a conscious action. It's not going to be stopped in its own. If you let it come by itself, that meteor is going to hit and create damage right where you are, right? So what do? You can see it's coming. That's fate. You can see it's coming because there is a predictable future that because you've had the past that you've had. So you know that unless something changes, unless something significant interrupts and disrupts that cycle or that momentum, that meteor is coming and it's going to hit you right here and boom, finished, right? So what do you do about that? So what that takes is this idea of understanding patterns in your life and understanding what it is that is getting in the way of you. How are you going to stop that meteor from crashing into you? No? And that's a conscious act. That is the commitment. That's when you have to rise to it. And it does take I would say, a superhuman effort. And I say superhuman, and I don't mean being a superwoman. I mean tapping into my higher consciousness. It's suprahuman in that sense, where we're tapping into the supramental aspect of who we are. And that's when we ask for the help, because I say help, and please don't misunderstand me. I don't care if people believe in God or not, because that's not what this is. It's just consciousness that whatever it is that helps you to create, your circumstances in life. And so one aspect is your past, and the other aspect is something free from the past, free from the conditioning. So tapping into that aspect of who you are is really critical, and at the same time being informed by that past is really important, because the meteor is coming, but you also know that you that is not your fate. I'm not going to allow that to happen. And so how am I going to create something else? How am I going to stop it? And how am I going to sort of take shift the trajectory of that meteor into some other direction, or just dismantle it completely? And so that's the kind of that's where commitment comes in, because you do have to get committed to yourself. You have to get committed to whatever it is you say you want. Make such a deep stand that God can't move you. This is where I'm headed. I'm standing for this. Please give me the wisdom, the information, bring me the people. Let's create the synchronicity. Who do I have to be? What do I need to give up? Those are the things that I mean by commitment. And that's where destiny comes in. That's where you shape your destiny.
Yeah, it's profound. There's again, another question goes along the lines of, from there then, clearing karma. Because I've often heard people make, this comes up in spiritual circles, which is like, oh yeah, I set the intention to clear karma. And then I had to unwind all this stuff, and all my stuff came up, and, it wasn't for the faint of heart. And, so from there, maybe we don't have to go in super deep, but maybe we start with, you mentioned Institute of the Light, or the Light Institute, or I'm sure there's other practices. What's the some methodologies for those that are tuning in on how to clear karma, if that's a thing, or do we even need to clear karma? Do we clear karma, and how do we clear karma? And from there, yeah, what happens when we make a commitment to clear karma? Is it instantaneous that karma's cleared? Is it a process? Yeah. Can you describe all of the above? It's such a big question.
It's really deep.
Just dumped it on
So
you on that part of me.
So let me share one thing, which is that this idea of karma first originated in an Upanishad called Aranyak Upanishad, okay? And it was written by I'd call him a philosopher scientist, probably, Yajnavalkya. And chap called Yajnavalkya. That was I don't remember the exact time period that he was alive, but it shows up in the Aranyak Upanishad in the Sanskrit form. And what he writes about is that man can shape his destiny, because man, as opposed to any other animal alive on the planet, has consciousness, right? And so the whole idea of karma came about from that it was never about, karma's a bitch. It was never about, of course, do good can happen, but we also know that a lot of good people have very bad things happen to them, really unfortunate things happen, and vice versa. So how does that happen? So that was his idea, was that man can affect his own destiny if he understands that the action and his thought and action are critical to impacting his destiny, and man does create his own destiny. So and sorry for using the old school term man and his and everything. You can call it hers and theirs and whatever else you like. I don't mean to offend anybody. It's just easier to speak. So so that's the basis of everything that we're talking about. So if we want to take a look at clearing karma, it's really that simple. So if you have a relationship with a sibling, let's say, or a parent, and there have been painful interactions, or the relationship has had things happen which have caused one or the other person or both people pain. I mean, the idea is the easiest way to go clear that karma, if it's possible, is to actually approach them and have a constructive, well thought through conversation in which one takes responsibility for their part in whatever happened, hopefully allowing the other person to open up and maybe it gives them the freedom to do the same. Very often that doesn't happen. Okay, we can aim for having a conversation with somebody and that doesn't happen, or somebody that you really cared about has left you with a lot of trauma. I know somebody whose dad died. Okay, the guy's in his 60s and dad died. His last question to the dad was, were you ever proud of me? Can you tell me? And he's on his deathbed, he's asking, were you ever proud of me? Are you proud of me? And even in that last moment, he never got an answer. Right? So dad dies, doesn't tell him he's proud of his son. What do? It leaves you with so much, it leaves you with this, it leaves you with so much to deal with. And so how do you resolve this? So sometimes clearing karma, Chris Griscom taught this technique to me, and it is absolutely brilliant. Sometimes all you need to do is you call that person up. So you call your higher self, the part of you that is beyond the identity, okay, conditioned by life and material and whatever else, okay, by anything that is anything that can corrupt somebody's mind. Okay, it's beyond that. So you call that part of you in. If it helps you, you can ask it to take a form that you recognize. That form might be a human being, it might be a superhero figure, it could be anything. Sometimes it shows up as a red chili for me because it's got a sense of humor. So but I mean, you can get as serious about it as you like, or not. And you also ask the other person, the person that you have this deep incompletion with, and you ask their higher self to take form. And then you ask them, what gift can I give you that would clear, that would bring a completion in our soul relationship? What gift can I give you? What would you like from me? And they will sometimes say things like, let's say they say, I want you to value and respect me. And you say, okay, what form does that take as an object? What form does that take as an object? It might be, let's say, a Ferrari, let's say. And you say, okay, so you visualize that Ferrari, you visualize whatever they want coming through the universe, through you, and through the solar plexus, you give it to them. And you watch them, how they receive it. And vice versa, you ask them what you want. Okay. And then you keep doing that until there is this sense of wholeness. And it really, really works, because the point of certain types of karma is that it only gets in the way of where we are and what's going on in life, because we have an expectation of something, or because we feel that something that we wanted was not, there was an unfulfilled expectation, or something like that, unresolved, unfulfilled. And so we need to get past that. So you may never speak to a person that you need to resolve something with, but you can do that through through the higher consciousness. And you will be amazed at how much peace can be brought about in the energetics and the dynamics between you and that person, or that group of people. And sometimes it can take many, many repetitions, and it's like a spiral, So the idea is more that you free yourself. And what does that mean, to free yourself? You want to bring yourself to a state of peace. Ultimately, that's all it means.
My next question was going to be, you're saying that there's profound shifts that are that can happen, and some part of me can feel that potentially you've exercised said process or similar process, and some interesting things have happened that potentially shouldn't have happened in the 3D. Can you give an example of such an occurrence?
Well, two really key ones. One is my relationship with my mum, because that was a really challenging, relationship where I did find it very difficult to be with her for a whole host of things that happened and so on and so on. And what it did was it actually had me accept my mom. That's a really profound, it sounds so obvious, but it's one of the main things that we don't, I think we tend not to do in our prime relationships, especially parents. If they're, some people are very lucky, they have amazing parents, and they don't have any such issues, but most people do. And that whole idea of just accepting somebody for who they are, accepting my mother for who she is, that has transformed everything for me. So in my relationships with myself, for example, that's a key. In accepting her, I accept myself so much more. There's an unconditionality about it.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that.
And the second thing is in my relationship with men in general. So this used to show up with the kinds of people that I was working for and so on. Just transforming completely, having men in my life who value me, who are committed to me, to my success, and who see me as a partner. And that obviously in my relationship with my husband, but also this happens with other key people in life. I may work with somebody or however. And so those are, when we shift something with one individual, we shift it with everybody. And most profoundly, I think we shift it with ourselves.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. There's so much more ground to cover because karma and time goes into so much. And I feel like today's been a masterclass on karma. I wanted to ask a question around, just the 24/7, 365 nature. You said there was this earlier on, we discussed the intention, and how much of our thoughts and how much of our actions are playing into our karma, then entrenching that into our sanskars, and ultimately tuning into the habits that we form, and then ultimately the lives that we lead. Touch wood. So is this but there's also this really lighthearted nature that you bring to this work as well. It's deeply profound, but you always have a sense of joy as an arc that you run through this, because it can be quite intimidating to go, oh, holy cow, God is watching 24/7, 365, every single thought I'm having. And I'll be the first to put my hand up to go, not every thought is worthy of God.
And let me give you, let me put you out of your misery. He's not watching. He's not watching. He's not bothered. This whole thing is about you with you. This whole dance is about you with you, the jivatman with the atman. That's all it is. And that whole hide and seek that we do is with our own self. And it's utterly crazy. I mean, it's crazy. When you get it, you think, what am I doing?
A game of personal smoke and mirrors.
Yeah, why am I bothering with this? Why? So when you get it, when you really profoundly get that if there is a God, great. But let's say there is no God. Okay. And I'm not being, I don't mean this as a heresy or anything. I mean, this is a place to stand, to empower yourself from, that this is a dance with you and you, the human with the being, the higher being. Okay. And eventually the whole idea of karma is to get that actually you are always whole and complete until you're only not until you don't get it. So the moment you realize it, You are free. There is this idea of jivan mukta, that you are freed as you are alive. You know, you are actually living life liberated as a being. And everything from that moment on is a choice, is a choice. Whatever you do is a choice. That's it. So if you want to go and be famous, you choose, you know that you're just choosing. It's a game. It's Leela. It's a game, you know. It's just like the world is a stage, as Shakespeare said, and like in the Gita, Krishna says, that life is a Leela, it's a stage, it's a play, and you're the main actor. So it's all fine. You choose what role you want to play, and for so long as you feel that it's not a play, fine. That's also part of the play. Okay, so there's nothing wrong at any point in time. And that's what I love about this journey is like, when you get it, you think, well, what shall I choose for myself? Because what I don't want to do is to waste my time, getting trapped in or stuff. Now you have a choice. Then you have to do things from a place where you're not going to create more sticky stuff, more karma stuff, that's going to stick around. So that's when you really when that's the state of enlightenment, that's the state of awakening, and you know that you have a choice. Want to be famous? Go do it, but just remember that you're having, it's a play. You're playing. It's a game you've chosen for yourself. If you want to make money, go make it, but again, remember, you've chosen to play that game. It's a game. It's not real.
And we come back to, the protagonist and Maya. Man, Smita, I feel like we've gone deep down the rabbit hole of karma here today, and yet there were so many other conversations and themes explored in Karma and Diamonds, moksha, detachment. There's heaps more that we could have talked about, but I think this is us for today. Thank you so much for sharing yourself so abundantly, your own personal experiences and story, and being so vulnerable in and around helping us, just illuminate this really, in many ways, misconceived ideas around karma and action and destiny, and really helping us clear them up. And just really grateful for the way you, not only what you're what you stand for, but also how you share it. It makes it so accessible. And I'm conscious I could thank you for today's time and energy, but it's, like you said, you've been doing this for a very long time, sharing this wisdom with the world. Your interviews have inspired me to be a better interviewer as well. So thank you so much for who you are and the work you do in the world. And also thank you for the time that you shared with
Thank
us
you,
here today.
Amrit. Thank you so much. You are such a beautiful soul. You really are, and it shines through. And it starts with the way you open every single podcast. I just love the joy that you bring into this, the lightheartedness. You're like this beam of light, on the internet. It's so beautiful.
Oh, thank you so much for
And
the love.
and your kind of commitment is really it's really moving. Your commitment to understanding the journey and to understanding yourself and life, it's extraordinary.
Wow. Thank you so much for that humbling reflection. I really, really appreciate it. Guys, tuning in, seriously, you cannot get enough of Smita's work. I will put a link to the Karma and Diamonds trilogy in the show notes below, but there is heaps more to check out on her YouTube channel as well, which I highly recommend. I'll put a link to that in the show notes below. This is us just honestly scratching the surface. Even if you just take a quick little waltz over to her YouTube channel, you will start seeing what I mean about these deep topics. And the videos are like 6 minutes long, and the amount of ground they cover. Get ready. I'll see you over there.
Thank you so much, Amrit.
Thank you so much for watching this video all the way to its end. Obviously, you absolutely love this podcast, and I want to thank you so much for watching this all the way through. Here is another video that's perfectly curated just for you to watch as the next best video to keep your inspiration flowing, to keep you evolving, to keep you yowing. Check it out now.